missed you. I'm about to go out after I go on my walk, but I wanted to kind of make a quick, I always say that, but it ends up being like 40 minutes long video about relationships and past life relationships and karmic connections and all that kind of stuff, because we are in the middle of cuffing season, so everybody's kind of getting together, trying to stay warm, even though it is 72 degrees here right now. I'm not dressed accordingly. I'm going to dress for fall, because that's just how I am. I love fall and winter so much that I'll just be hot. I don't care. Yeah, a lot of people are getting together, and from now until about March, a lot of people are gonna be in these connections. I've seen a lot of it the last 3 years or so. I've dealt with a good bit of it myself. I'm not an expert by any means, but I have had a few of these wonderful connections. The first thing I want to say is I know that a lot of the content online is confusing, and you don't want to add insult to injury by looking at these collective love readings for twin flames and shit. Girl, hang it up, especially on TikTok, on YouTube. Quit looking at his zodiac sign reading. Like, there's a reason that I don't do those, and it's because I feel like a lot of it is predatory. Are there some readers that I think do that on purpose to feed and benefit off of y'all's pain? Yes. And I think there's other ones that have genuine gifts and they're just not really understanding what they're feeding into, but that's their path, right? It doesn't make them a bad person. I've made mistakes. I've had to go back and delete content once I learned certain things. It's life, right? As long as you're not being malicious and you're trying to learn from your mistakes, there you go. But I just don't recommend that crap for anybody, especially if you're going through a breakup or you guys are on a break. With that said, I don't think it's a bad idea for you to get a reading, but get an individual, personalized reading on the situation. That way you are connecting with a reader one-on-one that can tap in and truly tell you like the ins and outs of your situation and where it's going and what your spirits are saying, what his spirits might be saying, because sometimes they do show up. I've had love readings done for clients by me before where the guy's grandmother maybe was very spiritual and she might show up for a minute or two and give her input. It doesn't happen very often, but it does happen sometimes. Obviously, the more spiritual that he is, the more inclined his spirits are going to be to help, right? So yeah, if you need a reading, I'm sorry, I'm like out of breath, because I just spent like an hour doing my makeup, and I was like in a rush to make a video, because something was on my heart, so yeah. Get a reading. You can click the link in my description, and you can either get a general reading where we go over everything, you can get a love reading, or you can get a consultation. And the consultations specifically are for people that need or want some type of spiritual work done. That's not a regular reading. Even though it's the most least expensive one, that's for a very specific situation, okay? I don't think that people really talk about the depth of past life stuff. Like, usually it's very superficial. And it's like, oh yeah, you and him were married in a past life. That's it. And something that my guides and my spirits and my higher self brought to my attention that I later told my friends that were dealing with this is, if you're like me and you are a very feminine woman and you resonate the most with divine feminine energy, chances are you've reincarnated a lot of times as a woman. You might have had a few lifetimes as a man, but for the most part, your soul is feminine, right? I think we forget all the shit that women have been through for the last 1,000, 10,000 years. We've always been oppressed. We've always struggled, been taken advantage of. Up until 100 or 200 years ago, women had no say-so. I mean, even 200 years ago, it was very limited, because we're talking about 1824, right? At that point, slavery was still legal in the US and in Europe. So you can see how that can disrupt our soul and our growth. Because how can you progress when you're stuck and you're limited? Women could not have jobs, and if they could, they were not very well paying jobs, and they were looked at as spinster jobs. There were some successful business women, don't get me wrong, but the majority of women were kind of trapped in marriages and motherhood and stuff. They could not have their own bank accounts, their own property. Cars didn't exist. Like, women couldn't have a lot of property, and a lot of times they were seen as property. Though obviously the wealthier families had a better situation, so that if the husband passed away, the wife would get a lot of stuff if it was done that way. But she could not remarry a lot of times, or she was expected to not remarry. So women, in a lot of ways, wealthy or not, had it very hard. And the reason that I'm bringing this up is because the way that my guides explain it to me is a lot of the feminine, like, this lifetime is the first one that we've had in a long time where we were pretty much free. For all intents and purposes, women don't need a man to survive anymore. Now, if an apocalypse happens, I'm shacking up with somebody. Okay, I'm 5'2" and 120 pounds. Those odds are not in my favor. So at that point, evolution kicks in. But in the US, that's not really a reality, right? Women can have our own house. We can even have a child on our own without even having intercourse with a man. We can have our own car, businesses, top-level careers, education. We can live very full and fulfilling lives without men. But when you come into these past life connections, a lot of times there's some of that behavior that still sits in your soul a little bit, and his. And what I mean by that is, like, in my situation, the very, very intense past life relationship that I had with my twin, I had been with him in many lifetimes, and usually I was the feminine, and I basically let him run shit, because he's very charismatic, he's very smooth, he's very smart, he's very hardworking, he just took over everything. And a lot of times, these relationships, when you encounter them again, they progress very quickly, despite all the advancement that we've done in society. So, when I met him, I was a little bit younger, and I don't do this anymore, but the first night that I met him, I had spent the night at his house. And the second day, that we spent together, he wanted me to move in with him. And at first I was like, you're bullshitting. I have my own house. Like, what? Like, you just want some pee-pee or something. But he's like, no, I'm serious. Like, I want to be with you. I'll take care of you. And he showed me, he's like, here's my bank statements. Here's what I have. Here's all about my company. You won't have to work. Just stay home. Take care of the house a little bit. And you can do whatever. I don't care. Right? So, obviously, I did not rush to that, but we were kind of working towards it. What happened, though, the first argument that we had, I stood up for myself. And I used this good and trusty throat chakra. And I spoke up for myself. And ever since then, everything kind of fell apart. And I felt it when it was happening. I'm like, I could feel it in my spirit. I'm like, something is shifting right now. And what it was his soul was used to me letting him run shit. And letting him do whatever he wanted and putting up with it. Because I had to. Hello. But as soon as I spoke up for myself, everything blew up. And we were on and off after that. But it wasn't the same. And I've had friends and clients who have been in very similar situations with these masculines. And the first time they speak up for themselves, that's it. And my understanding is I'm sorry. I remember how hurt I was. I'm not hurt anymore. It's just I feel bad for my younger self. But, these masculines, remember, a lot of them, even if they're not spiritual or whatever and think it's all woo-woo, they're a soul. And that's just who they are. They're used to a lot of control over women and their relationship. And so they're kind of bamboozled and caught off guard when the woman speaks up for herself. And this has a lot of varying degrees of severity. This can be like him, like he was never violent towards me. I was never afraid of him. We just would argue a lot. And obviously it can get much worse than that. But your soul kind of has to start breaking away from that. And the test for both of you is take the necessity out. Right? Because I was living on my own when I met him. The test for me was, you have your own stuff, and yeah, he's wanting to, like, provide for you, but before that happens, can y'all still make this relationship work, even though you're not dependent on him? And for him, his test was, I'm sorry, y'all, I have not eaten, and I drank a bunch of water, so my little body is making a bunch of weird noises. His test is, do you love her, or do you just love having her and having control over her? And if that's the case, y'all are not going to work, because it's not how it was before. And a lot of these connections are people that you've been with many, many times. That's why everything moves very quickly. Obviously, it's not the best idea. I don't think that you should move in with someone that quickly. And I wasn't going to. I was going to kind of let it ride, but it was an option if I wanted to. So, this is where a lot of women get pregnant very quickly, or they get married very quickly. A lot of the time is because you have a lot of history with this person, and that's why it hurts so bad when y'all split. Because if you just meet someone for the first time in this lifetime, and y'all develop a relationship over time, and you start building history, and it's hard to let go of, imagine how hard it is when your soul has been with this person many, many, many times. That's why it hurts so bad. Because it's so familiar. And I think that for a lot of us, this is the lifetime where we kind of have to be without him. The universe, God, everybody gave him a chance, right? He just had to give up the controlling bullshit. If I'm going to stand up for myself, I'm going to stand up for myself. And that's how you identify these men. You will stand up for yourself, and they will, like, shun you and act like you're the problem. Like, oh my god, you're fucking crazy. I'm like, how am I crazy? All I said is, what you're doing is fucked up and wrong, and I'm not okay with that. Don't do that shit. Simple. Boundary. I'm not a violent person. I'm not destructive. That's crazy. Okay? Going Carrie Underwood, that's crazy. Did I think about that? Of course. But I didn't do it. I didn't threaten to do it. I just stood up for myself. And that's the manipulation. They will act like you are just so crazy, and they'll never say for sticking up for yourself, but they'll say you're too emotional, you're bitchy, you have anger issues, whatever. Like, you would be surprised how colorful they will get. But, you just gotta let it go. So I just kind of wanted to shed that piece of information about remembering the things that women have been through, and society has come a long way, but it has to balance out. You know what I mean? And there's nothing wrong with, in my opinion, if it's done correctly, there's nothing wrong with the man being a leader, but that does not equate to control. Because it's like, my mom always told me, like, your dad was the head, but I was the neck. And the neck can move that head any way that she wants. And she's right. And my dad would always go to her before making important decisions. That's just how I grew up. And he was a disciplinarian. Like, when my parents separated, Mom's house was like Disney World. Truly. And that's just how it played out. And I'm happy that it was that way. And I don't see anything wrong with traditional values, even in 2024, if they're done correctly. If that's not your thing, you don't have to believe that or have that in your life, but I think a lot of men want that until they realize it doesn't mean what it used to mean. Like, women can leave you now and be on their own, no problem. And obviously there's a lot of situations where, because of how the relationship has panned out, the woman can't leave. Or it'll take her a little while to build up her resources on her own so that she can leave, because she's dependent on him. There has to be middle ground, you know, and a lot of men, it's like, they want all the control, but no responsibility. So, I'm a very old soul. I have been here a few times, you know, and my soul will always, like, love him. I don't hate him. I don't. Am I surprised? Even now that he's my twin? Yeah. Because, let me tell you something. When I met him, we were the exact same person. In different ways. Excuse me. I just happened to grow out of it and want to change, and he did not. So, I've had other past life relationships and stuff. That was the most intense one, hence why it hurt so bad. There was one other one in particular that didn't hurt as bad, but it's like the pull and the desire is still there. And he's a Virgo as well. Like, my twin is a Virgo, and we'll just call him number 2 is a Virgo. And 2 completely different personalities, which is very interesting. I have not had very good luck with Virgos, to the point now where if I meet a guy that's a Virgo, I'm like, I'm not gonna tell him that's why, because I think that's kind of bitchy. But, yeah. With this one, I know what happened and what kind of karmatic bullshit is there. And he does too. He's kind of avoidant of it. And my twin is not an avoidant person. I mean, he is when there's conflict, but he's not as reserved. He's very charismatic. He's very, very, dare I say, arrogant. So he didn't see me as a threat by any means until I stood up for myself. The more reserved one, that's kind of a toss-up, honestly, because it's not disrupting my soul to be away from him. You know, like, I miss him, but we just, no. He does not like the fact that I am, in one of the traditions that I practice, I am at the same level as him. Because he knows that most likely he will fuck up the relationship and I will have to retaliate, and he would rather be with a woman that does not have that knowledge. So, that's just an example of how these relationships end up panning out. A lot of it comes down to control. It hurts, but I want y'all to understand that it's just life, and the more you develop and the more you are in tune with yourself and the more authentic that you are, the more you're going to understand these connections. And free will is a thing. Like, yes, our spirit guides can kind of influence us to do certain things, and the universe can put certain people in our path, but they can only get involved to a certain extent. And these relationships, it takes 2 people. You can't carry all that weight by yourself. And I want my feminines to remember that, because we tend to spiritually awaken a lot faster, and we can just know, like, down to the T, okay, I was with him in this place, in this time, I did a meditation, I understand, I get it, and I say this with a loving heart. If you try to explain that shit to that man, he's going to call you crazy. Even if he knows it too. Ask me how I know. Y'all think number 2 doesn't know that it's a past life thing? And he's a He's a priest. He does. But a lot of men are intimidated by witches. And y'all are going to run into that if you're a witch. And you're coming into past life relationships. A lot of men are going to be afraid of you. And if you're like me and you tend to date a lot of alpha males, they're never going to tell you that they're afraid of you. They'll just act like there's something wrong with you. When there's not. They're just scared. Because they know how immature that they are and they're not ready to change. And witches hold a lot of power. You're upset. Sometimes that's enough to curse somebody. So, I just wanted to give a little insight to this. Love is in the air, and I love love, and as painful as these relationships were, well, really, my twin. The other ones, meh. I learned a lot, and, as time goes by, I don't hate them. I don't hate my twin by any means. Do I think he's stupid and stubborn and annoying? Yeah. But I also know that deep down he does love me because he can't help it. Like, a lot of people don't realize that your ego is separate from your soul. But a lot of men allow their ego to drive because they feel like they have to. And men are very afraid of doing anything that makes them look weak. So, just kind of remember what women have gone through and give yourself grace and do the best that you can. Okay? Like I said, I'm not an expert in this crap, but I've dealt with a good bit of it. And I wanted to kind of give you guys a piece of info that might help you understand why y'all are having some of the dynamics that you're having. Okay? I need to go eat something. Okay, I love y'all. I'm gonna go eat something and then go for a walk and go out. If you would like to book a reading, you can click the link in my description and I will take care of you and connect with you one-on-one. I also sell spiritual baths. I do spiritual work. So if you get a consultation and it comes up that yes, this relationship is fixable and it's okay to try to fix it, meaning it's in your best interest and theirs, I have no problem helping you. I'm very, very, very good at sweetening and reconciliation and pulling in, especially men. That's my gift that the good Lord has blessed me with, and I love doing it. I love love. I'm a Cancer, and I'm not gonna judge you, okay? Like, I'm not as boy crazy now as I used to be, but girl, oh, and if they had good pee-pee, I was hysterical. Side note, Virgos, I have not been with one that was disappointing. And I think that's because they're like the quiet, shy, reserved ones. You know. I love earth sign men. I really do. Virgos are my favorite. Y'all get the fuck on my nerves, but you make the world a better place. My little arrogant, anal retentive, OCD Virgos. Okay? I love y'all so much. Thank you for rocking with me. This year is almost over. It's been a very interesting year, and I hope that y'all have enjoyed my content this year. I've definitely been a lot more authentic and really just making videos when it's on my heart and going with it, and it seems to work out pretty well. Okay, I love y'all. I'll talk